The screen opens with a quiet sunrise. Soft light spills across the horizon, and a gentle voice begins to speak. There are moments in life when the weight feels unbearable. When you've prayed, waited, struggled, and stayed patient for so long that your heart quietly asks, how much longer? If you're in that place right now, listen carefully. Because sometimes, before ease arrives, the signs are already there, even if we don't recognize them yet. One of the first signs that your test is nearing its end is something unexpected. Your heart begins to soften. The anger that once burned inside you slowly loses its strength. You're still hurting, but you're no longer bitter. You find yourself forgiving more easily, letting go of grudges you once held tightly. Not because people suddenly deserve it, but because your heart is being prepared for peace. Allah does not fill a heart with calm when He intends to keep it in pain. Another sign appears in silence. You start turning back to Allah in ways you didn't before. Not just with words, but with sincerity. Your dua becomes quieter, deeper, more honest. You don't ask for everything to be fixed immediately anymore. Instead, you ask for strength, for understanding, for closeness. And that shift matters. Because when Allah brings you closer to Him during hardship, it's often a sign that the hardship is teaching its final lesson. Then there's a third sign, and it can feel confusing at first. Things don't suddenly get easier, they get clearer. You begin to see why certain doors were closed, why certain people had to leave, why delays were necessary. The pain doesn't disappear overnight, but it starts to make sense. And when something starts making sense, it stops controlling you. That clarity is a mercy. It's Allah gently showing you that what you thought was a loss was actually protection. And finally, there is the sign that often goes unnoticed. You feel a strange sense of peace even though nothing has fully changed yet. The problem may still be there. The answer may not have arrived. But your heart feels steadier. You wake up with less fear. You sleep with more trust. That peace does not come from circumstances, it comes from Allah. And He does not place tranquility in a heart unless relief is close. Tests don't last forever. They come to shape you, not to break you. And if you're seeing these signs, even faintly, know this: Allah has not forgotten you. He sees every tear, every prayer whispered in the dark, every moment you chose patience over despair. Hold on a little longer. Not because you are weak, but because ease is part of the promise. And sometimes, the test doesn't end suddenly, it fades quietly, just as it began. Trust the process. Trust Allah. Your test is about to end. Another sign begins quietly, almost unnoticed, and it shows itself not in what changes around you, but in what changes inside you. It is when your heart starts to soften after being hard for so long. Not weak, not broken, softened. There is a difference. For a long time, your heart may have been tense, guarded, exhausted from carrying disappointment after disappointment. You learned to protect yourself. You built walls, even in prayer. You spoke to Allah, but perhaps with a tired voice, or with words that came from habit rather than hope. You still believed, but belief felt heavy. It felt like effort. And then, slowly, something shifts. You notice that the anger you used to feel doesn't rise as fast anymore. Situations that once triggered you now pass with less intensity. You still remember the pain, but it doesn't control your reactions the same way. You don't feel the same urge to argue, to explain yourself, to defend your worth. Instead, there is a quiet pause. A breath. A moment where you choose calm. Even when you could choose chaos. This softening can feel confusing. You might even question it. You may ask yourself, why am I not as angry as before? Or, why does this hurt less than I expected? And sometimes, a part of you may even miss the anger, because anger once made you feel strong, alive, justified. But Allah replaces that anger with something deeper: acceptance. Not acceptance of injustice. Not acceptance of pain as something you deserve. But acceptance that Allah is in control, even when you don't understand His timing. You start forgiving, not always out loud, and not always fully, but enough to release the poison from your heart. You stop replaying old conversations in your mind. You stop wishing you had said something differently. You stop asking, why me? As often. And in that space, something beautiful happens. Your heart becomes lighter. And Allah does not lighten a heart without reason. This softening is often a preparation. Just as the earth must soften before rain can be absorbed, your heart must soften before relief can truly enter. If ease arrived while your heart was still hardened by resentment, you wouldn't feel it fully. You wouldn't trust it. You wouldn't recognize it as a gift. Another layer of this sign shows itself in how you speak to Allah. Your dua changes. Before, your prayers may have been urgent, desperate, filled with, please, and, when. You asked for answers. You asked for solutions. You asked for things to end. And there is nothing wrong with that. Allah welcomes those prayers. But now, something feels different. You find yourself talking to Allah more honestly. More simply. Sometimes without long words. Sometimes without tears. Just presence. You sit in silence after prayer. You whisper, you know. And somehow, that feels enough. You're not demanding relief anymore, you're trusting it. This is not giving up. This is surrender. You begin to feel closer to Allah not because your problems disappeared, but because you stopped running from Him with your pain. You bring your brokenness to Him without embarrassment. You stop pretending to be strong in front of the one who already knows your weakness. And that closeness is a powerful sign. Because when Allah draws you nearer during hardship, it is often because the hardship has already done its work. It has taught you patience. It has stripped away your illusions. It has reminded you where real strength comes from. And once the lesson is learned, the test no longer needs to stay. There is also a subtle change in how you see others. You become less focused on who hurt you and more aware of your own healing. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop expecting closure from people who are incapable of giving it. Instead, you find closure in knowing that Allah saw everything. And that knowledge brings peace. You may still feel sadness sometimes. Softening does not mean numbness. It means your emotions flow instead of exploding. It means you cry when you need to, without shame. It means you smile again, even if the smile feels unfamiliar at first. It means you allow moments of joy without immediately fearing that they will be taken away. This is important, because when your test is close to ending, Allah often reminds you how to live again. You start noticing small blessings you once overlooked. A quiet morning, a kind word, a deep breath that doesn't feel heavy. These moments don't erase your struggles, but they remind you that life still holds beauty, even in waiting. And waiting begins to feel different. It no longer feels like punishment. It feels like trust, like being held, even in uncertainty. You stop measuring your progress by external results and start recognizing internal growth. You realize you are not the same person who first entered this trial. You are calmer, wiser, more grounded. This is why this sign is so important, and so easy to miss. Many people think the end of a test will be loud, dramatic, obvious. But often, the real ending begins quietly, when Allah heals the heart before He changes the situation. Because once your heart is healed, no outcome can destroy you. And when you reach this stage, know this: Allah is not delaying out of neglect. He is completing the process with precision. He is ensuring that when the door opens, you walk through it stronger, not desperate. Grateful, not bitter. Aware, not afraid. If you feel your heart softening, if your connection with Allah feels deeper, if peace is visiting you even briefly, hold on to that. It is not random. It is not imagined. It is a sign. Your test is not endless. It is concluding its purpose. And something better is quietly on its way.